I want to see the evidence. I want to see the trends. I want to see the patterns. I want to see what's directly causing this so that we can directly address it.
I'm glad you brought up the evidence. You referenced some statistics. Violent crime up by 50%, homicides increased by 27%. Also, interestingly, 35% of those homicides in 2023 committed by a criminal on some sort of release, including bail. How do you explain the undeniable increase in crime over the past 10 years?
How do we better balance the right of the accused with the right of the public to be protected from repeat violence?
This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
So for today's panel, we do have with us three people.
First, from Canadian Association of Black Lawyers, Theresa Donker, Director of Advocacy. Canadian Association of Elizabeth Fry Societies, Nikki Kish, Co-Executive Director. And from the Canadian Bar Association, we have Melanie Webb, Chair of the Criminal Justice Section. Welcome, all three.
I'll start with Ms. Kish. Have you met with any families who have had loved ones murdered by somebody out on bail?
Not murdered by an individual out on bail, but I did have previous employment at an association that worked directly with survivors of homicide.
That's fine. I just want to, same question to Ms. Doncor. Have you ever met with a family who's had a loved one murdered by somebody out on bail?
Not in that specific instance, but definitely victims of crime.
Same question to you, Ms. Webb. Have you ever met with a family who's had a loved one who was murdered by somebody out on bail?
Not specifically murdered, but I certainly have people close to me who have been victims.
I just wanted to establish that point. I appreciate that. I'll go back to Ms. Kish. Do you believe public safety should be the primary or a secondary concern when it comes to the design of the bail system in Canada?
I think that it's perhaps artificial to associate primary and secondary concerns. I think the concern of the individual, the concerns of the victim, and the concerns of the public are interrelated. And if we adopt a human and a holistic approach to understanding that, we'll have much better outcomes moving forward.
You would say that it would be simplistic thinking to putting public safety first when it comes to the design of the justice system and bail system specifically in Canada?
Not simplistic. As my colleagues mentioned, I think that the safety and protection of the public is always the salient consideration at all processes of our judicial system right now. But what we have is a persistent problem with similar outcomes over time that demonstrates that some things need to change.
Do you believe it would be easier or harder for a repeat violent offender to reoffend while they're still in jail?
More difficult, but realistically, can we keep people incarcerated forever? And if not, then let's consider how we're treating them while they're in prison.
But we're talking about the bail system here, so I just wanted to establish that point that we're all on the same page. Do you agree that when you look at a Liberal bill like Bill C-75 that removed, including the principle of restraint, as well as introducing reverse bail onus for serious crimes, would lead to more potentially dangerous criminals remaining behind bars? You can argue whether that's a good thing or a bad thing or not, but just to establish the facts.
I'm not certain that there are any effect from these policies on people who are posing actual danger remaining behind bars. Just from my professional experience, what I see is a system that's so exhausted that it can't properly assess these decisions, and it begins assessing decisions for the wrong reason, for time constraints, for resource restraints, but that there's a lot of really good professionals in the system who want to help individuals who are posing harm, and their hands are tied.
Ms. Dunker, what would you say to, I've spoken to a lot of police officers who are frustrated, who tell me stories repeatedly of arresting the same person over and over and over again, stories of arresting the same person for the same offense twice within a 24-hour period, who are almost putting up their hands and feeling like they aren't being given the tools to do their job.
I would say that we share the same concerns when it comes to public safety. We're certainly not saying, let's sit on our hands and do nothing here about repeat offenders. That's not the case. We want something to be done, but we want effective reforms. And effective reforms are evidence-based reforms. I want to see the evidence. I'm hearing a lot of concerns about Bill C-75 and how that's led to more repeat offenders. I want to see the evidence. I want to see the trends. I want to see the patterns. I want to see what's directly causing this so that we can directly address it.
I'm glad you brought up the evidence. You referenced some statistics from, I believe it was maybe 2024 to 2025 or 2023 to 2024. But there's some other statistics there as well, as far as what's been happening since 2015. Violent crime up by 50%, homicides increased by 27%. Also, interestingly, 35% of those homicides in 2023 committed by a criminal on some sort of release, including bail. So I think if you look at public opinion, you look at the statistics provided by the government since 2015, since this new Liberal government came into power, violent crime is up across the board. So you can cherry pick different regions and different, 1 year, year-over-year periods within that. But how do you explain the undeniable increase in crime over the past 10 years?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
There's about 30 seconds. I'll give you some time to finish your thoughts, but we have to move on.
So she has the opportunity.
Unfortunately, I know I appreciate that there may be increases in specific types of offenses over periods of time, but suffice it to say that the statistics alone don't tell us specifically what's the cause of that. So unfortunately, I'm unable to comment as to whether, and I would be very reluctant to speculate.
Your position, it's a coincidence?
I wouldn't say it's a coincidence, but I think that there needs to be meaningful analysis.
The Conservatives, including the members on this committee, have already suggested to fix the bail system, suggesting that would require the use of the notwithstanding clause. Would you agree with that?
We would not agree with the use of the notwithstanding clause for reasons that are, I think, well set out in submissions that the CBA has made elsewhere. Frankly, we would focus on, again, trying to make our bail system more efficient so that we can focus on the offenses and the crimes that are of serious concern to the public.
You've spoken about the importance of fairness alongside public safety. From your perspective, what safeguards are most important to assure bail laws are applied consistently and credibly in all communities?
Well, that's an excellent question. And I think that we need, for one, we do need more resources in our courts. We need more resources, more appointment of judges so that we're not experiencing the delays that we're currently seeing, especially in Ontario. But I also think that what's more important, or as equally important, is more funding, especially for legal aid, because I think we see disproportionately that individuals with more resources, more access to sureties, more financial resources are the ones that are able to be released on bail, as opposed to those from marginalized communities who may not have the same resources and access to sureties. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're any more dangerous or they're any more of a risk to public safety. They simply do not have the resources. And that certainly is an equity issue that needs to be addressed.
For the last decade, government policies have clearly failed to address the exponential rise in crime. While it is essential that we guarantee judicial right to the accused, we also have a duty to protect law-abiding citizens from repeat offenders. Statistics are clear. Most serious crimes are committed by individuals with prior records. According to Public Safety Canada, between 2019 and 2022, 53% of individuals charged with homicide were on bail at the time of offense. Given these alarming figures, what changes would you propose to ensure that individuals with a history of serious or violent offenses are not released only to reoffend? And how do we better balance the right of the accused with the right of the public to be protected from repeat violence? My question is to all of you.
I'm happy to start, but I will leave time for my colleagues to respond as well. I certainly appreciate the concerns about repeat offenders, as I believe we all in this room do appreciate those concerns as well. I would start off by saying that I'm not sure that the empirical evidence supports the notion that there's a dramatic increase in crime. But I do see that there is a concern about repeat offenders. And one thing that I would emphasize when we're talking about repeat offenders is what my colleague Ms. Webb emphasized, that prisons and jails have a criminogenic effect. I listened to this committee's meeting last week with the police, and I know that a lot of members, committee members, have expressed that they have done ride-alongs with the police. I would encourage you all to do visits to our provincial jails as well and our prisons. You will see the inhumane and dangerous conditions in those institutions, and you will see how those conditions have a criminogenic effect. If we truly care about keeping our community safer, we need to be concerned just as much with rehabilitation as we are with punishment. Because the reality is, if somebody is spending years in a cage without any programming, without any supports, without any rehabilitation, they will come out more dangerous. So if we really want to address these repeat offenders, we need to be hitting the root of rehabilitation and investing in rehabilitation to make our community safer.
Yeah, I'll just underscore what my colleague shared, and that's it's not a coincidence that so many people causing harm have been system involved previously, because the system is a contributing factor in the behavior post-release.
Thank you. I echo the comments of Ms. Donkor and Ms. Kish. And I noticed in her remarks that Ms. Donkor highlighted that Toronto Police Chief Myron Demkew had reported that, in fact, there had been significant decreases in the numbers and rates of several serious offenses, including homicides, shootings, discharges of firearms, and robberies. I also took the opportunity to take a look at the stats for the region of Peel, and I also found complementary decreases in homicide, robberies, break-and-enters, and auto thefts. So respectfully, my suggestion is I echo the entreaty of Ms. Donkor that we really need to focus on rehabilitation. But as we all know, and as I believe the president of the Canadian Police Association had testified to last week, unfortunately our provincial jails are no place for rehabilitation. And that is what we really need to focus on. Thank you.
Well, my another question to you, and I heard that you understand the prisons and the prisoners, but I would like to know from each of you that how many victims did you consult for your testimony here today?
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I can indicate that I have personally represented victims of crime. I have had people who are close to me who are victims of crime. I have tried not to be insular. I can tell you that the Canadian Bar Association criminal section is a balanced section, which includes the input of Crowns who regularly interact with victims of crime, with complainants, and it's with all of that background and experience that I'm here today.
And I echo Ms. Webb's comments. I am a criminal defense lawyer, but I also represent complainants in sexual assault proceedings. So I've certainly heard their perspective, and I am here today not only speaking as a defense lawyer, but I'm also speaking as a Black woman. I'm also speaking as a woman who has represented other women and other victims of crime as well. So I do hope that in my sentiment, you are hearing a holistic perspective, and know that I'm speaking from a holistic perspective, not just from the perspective of the accused.
Similarly, our network always takes the opportunity to remind the public that many people who experience incarceration are themselves individuals who have been victimized by crime in their lifetimes.
So diversity teaches us one thing, that fairness must be at the heart of our approach. But the good people of Burnaby Central also tell me that they want to feel safe in their homes, on the transit, and in their neighborhoods. So the balance between fairness and firmness is important as we study bail and sentencing reforms. Canadians lose confidence when the system seems too lenient, but they also lose confidence if it overlooks equality and charter protections. So my very first question goes to Ms. Kish. The CAEFS emphasized that human rights and dignity should be at the heart of justice policy, including bail and sentencing. So how can bail decision-making better balance these principles with the goal of enhancing community safety?
I'll reiterate that I think that the existing law in the books is strong, and that the problem is what happens to people when we're sending them into prisons. Most of the individuals who I speak to who don't feel safe in various communities across Canada feel a lack of safety because of people in untreated addiction in communities. And talking about how to respond to addiction in society and how these drugs are getting to our streets and talking about prisons should be separate conversations. I think the only reason they're conflated is because right now most people in active untreated addiction end up committing minor or serious crimes and going into our prison system, which is ill-equipped to handle them. So if we weren't incarcerating people for issues of mental illness and addiction, and if we were thinking meaningfully and in distinct ways about these crises we face, then we can tease out why people are being incarcerated, experiencing worse conditions in prison, being released and causing harm again, because prison is not the appropriate response.
Thank you. So my second question would be, conditional release often relies on support such as housing, treatment, and supervision, yet CAEFS has identified gaps in these resources across provinces. So in your opinion, in your view, what are the most significant gaps and what actions should be taken to address them?
Especially post-pandemic, I think, speaking to what's causing an increase of crime, if there is one, again, I would point to people having a lack of affordability, a lack of resources, a lack of purpose, untreated addiction, and then worsening mental health crises that flow from all of these things. We know what works. I ended with the anecdote of the story of the individual who found community because it's strangely simple. As complicated as we make the system, when people feel cared for and feel like they have an opportunity to be a better version of themselves and to do something that means something in the world, in more cases than not, they're going to respond positively. Sure, we have a society that will always be imperfect and harm is always possible, but let's invest in what works, which are community-led programs. And in the portion of last week's testimony when the police associations were speaking to cross-sectoral and cross-jurisdictional mobilization, it's true, we can't be working in silos. We all face and all respond to the same problems, so we should be doing it together.
Thank you, Ms. Kish. And my third question goes to Ms. Donker. The Canadian Association of Black Lawyers has argued that social context should be considered in criminal proceedings. So how can that principle help ensure that bail decisions target repeat violent offenders while avoiding unintended impacts?
Well, we do already have Section 493.2 of our criminal code, which is intended to address vulnerable populations, including Black and Indigenous communities, and Black and Indigenous individuals that are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system. And where that is applied appropriately, that should be a way in which social context evidence can come into consideration in the bail context. And I want to make clear that 493.2 is not a get-out-of-jail-free card simply because you are Black, Indigenous, or marginalized. It is taking consideration of the full picture. And our courts at all levels, including the Supreme Court of Canada, has recognized that racism, in particular anti-Black racism, is a prevalent part of our society, including our institutions, including the criminal justice system. So it is not simply that Black and Indigenous people are more violent, commit more crimes. A part of the reason why we are continually seeing Black and Indigenous people in our criminal justice system is due to anti-Black racism, systemic discrimination that needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
This brings an end to question period.